Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. It is iCave Dave Live. How is everyone doing today? I've got myself a little tropical blast here from Aldi, the finest only. It's kind of knockoff lilt, but this is what we got. How are you? How are you doing? I see we have 3 viewers currently, so do say hi down in the chat. Always good to say hello to everyone. But yeah, we've got a few interesting stories to talk about this week. Let me know as well if the audio sounds okay, because I can't obviously monitor it myself. So yeah, do let me know if you can hear me okay, all that good stuff. But yeah, we've got a few interesting stories. The biggest one, obviously, this week would be the rumours resurfacing about Apple and Disney potentially having some sort of hookup going on. Hello, Slow Cuba. Hello, Phil Gilligan. How are you, gentlemen? Hope the sound is okay for you. I'm a little bit wheezy today, I'm going to be honest with you. So apologies. I do seem to be a little bit sniffly, but I was also like mowing grass this morning. It's been one of those days when I've been getting outside and actually doing things, as well as obviously doing the video this morning. And I've submitted another video which has gone off to a potential sponsor, which is for the unboxing of the iMac G4. That hopefully will be out in the next couple of days, which will be really good. Great stuff. Seems like the audio is working, so that's a win, as I cobbled this setup together about 3 minutes ago. So you, as usual, very well organised. Yeah, how's everyone's week been? What's everyone been talking about? What's everyone been watching? What's good, guys? This is, as I say, this is our usual kind of hangout night. So we just get to chill, listen, chat, you know, shoot it. Let me know what you're interested in. I'm just gonna double check on a place like Mac Rumors in case anything's broken while I wasn't looking. Which would be quite annoying. Doesn't look like it because they're talking about iPad users using Samsung stuff. There's the obligatory Grid Studio giveaway, which I'm good. Mac Rumors. And then we've got deals. So no, I guess there's not a lot. The only thing that is interesting is that we are seeing suppliers bidding on iPhone SE 4 OLEDs as potential suppliers for those panels, which is interesting. Christopher Gavin, how are we doing? Looking for a new 32-inch monitor for photo/video work on the Mac. Okay, Phil, so I would say, obviously, we've been hearing rumours that there may be a new Apple display, so it depends what your budget's looking like, to be completely honest, because I would say that if it's not going to be a follow-up to the Pro Display XDR, it's probably going to be a replacement, but it may not be a full-on follow-up to that. We could be looking in the sort of $3,000 price range, I would guess, or $2,500, $3,000, something there. So it's photo and video work, so I guess you need to be pretty colour accurate. In all honesty, the Samsung ones sound like they've been pretty good. They've done a 5K display, which is, I think, still 27 inches, like the Studio display. But pretty good reviews so far. I think Linus Tech Tips have reviewed it, but obviously they are going to be like, yeah, anything that's not Apple, they're going to be a lot more positive about than we probably would be, but might be worth a look, because I think they're about $799 instead of $1,500, $1,600. But let's see. Yeah, so the iPhone SE, one thing that I've noticed is a lot of outlets were using the kind of existing SE in the images, but if this is going to be an OLED panel, the chances are it's going to look a lot more like the iPhone 12, I would guess. So, you know, going to the notch finally and getting rid of the home button. So that would mean that the only home button that still remains in an Apple product that they currently sell would be the iPad 9th Gen, I guess, if they were to remove it from the SE, which would be cool. And we've already got the replacement for the 9th Gen lined up, the 10th Gen iPad. So I think the home button may not be much longer for this world. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Is there anyone out there that still thinks Touch ID is better? That seems to still cause all sorts of arguments online. But yeah, say hi if you haven't already, down in the chat. We're all friends here, so yeah, join in, get involved. That's why we're here. Oh, I've got an email. Let me see. Oh, it's just to tell me that I'm live. I knew this. We were chatting. So yeah, Mac Rumors doesn't have a lot to tell us. Let's check my actual Work Daddy Supercharged and just see if there's anything else that's going on over there. Omar and Oscar might have been finding some other stuff. iPhone 15 model lineup identifies. Oh yeah, this was an interesting thing, I think. So we talked about it a little bit earlier in the week. Has everyone been enjoying the additional stuff going on this week in terms of me making content on a regular basis again? It's exciting, isn't it? We talked about it a bit earlier in the week that the Apple TV iOS 17 betas seem to be showing that there is a new version of what we assume is the iPhone 14 showing up in the code, which looks very much like they're going to basically do a USB-C version of the 14 so that they can keep that around, and then we'll still get the new 15 with USB-C and the 15 Pros with USB-C. So I think that the 12 might be finally leaving the lineup, and probably the 13s, which might mean that Apple doesn't sell a mini iPhone after this year as well. Thomas Rabenstein's here. How you doing, Thomas? Nice to see you. Phil's saying, thinking BenQ SW321C. They're such catchy names. But they recently released a new 27-inch, so waiting. Yeah. Phil Gilligan's saying, quite like Touch ID on the iPad Mini. I've got to say, I'm not a fan of the Touch, because I've got the iPad Air, which was the first one that got that Touch ID in. Let's just get rid of the case because nobody likes cases. Yeah, so it was the first one that got that Touch ID. I don't like it. I'm not a fan. It's always in the wrong place. If you use any sort of a case that it doesn't really work, you're trying to kind of poke your finger in through the holes. Yeah, I'm not. It's not the one. Why can't we have Face ID on everything yet? Face ID should be able to fit on most stuff. Slow Cube is saying, I love Touch ID in public. Face ID is better, though, when available. Why don't you like Face ID in public? Is it a mask thing? Are you guys still going with the masks over there? Lars Anderson's here. How are you doing? What colours do we think the iPhone Pro Max models will come in? I'm not 100% sure. I think from what we're hearing, the Pro colour this year is going to be some kind of dark grey blue, because Apple loves blue. The only one that they've done that's not been has been this purple 14 Pro that I've got, and I'm going to be honest, it was a crap purple. It's not the best. But yeah, I would love still to see a red in the Pros. But right now, it doesn't seem like that's what we're going to be getting. Michael Moy has arrived with us now, having had a nap, which is great. Good. Always good to get some rest in, my friend. Phil Gilligan is laughing, hopefully, at me taking the mickey out of the BenQ name, I assume. Yeah. So the SE thing, I think if we do get the SE and we go to Face ID, that's good, because Face ID is more secure. It does do other stuff as well, whereas Touch ID just does Touch ID. When you've got Face ID, it's the true depth camera, which you then use for like face tracking, for emojis, for autofocus and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot more stuff that's built into that Face ID sensor than just biometrics, which is, I think, a good thing. Whereas Touch ID is just Touch ID. That's it. Yeah, I'm a Face ID fan, I've got to say. I want it on the Mac. I want it on everything. I want Face ID. I want to be able to walk up to my front door and it see me and let me in. I think that'd be just really good. I think with the iMacs, if they start using them for schools, which this I've been saying right from the beginning, now that we've got Apple Silicon and we've got Face ID as options, put Face ID onto school iMacs, which tends to be one of the ones that's used in, at least permanent computer rooms in schools, and let it log the right person in by what they look like. If it can identify who you are based on your face, You don't need to remember passwords. You save a lot of time for IT techs, and yeah, it just makes everything kind of magical. That just seems like a win for me. Am I missing something there? Multi-user support with Face ID. Surely that's like easy to do. Schools use Chromebooks here. Yeah, I know a lot of schools use Chromebooks, but Apple's always had a really good education program, and do have a lot of schools that work with them. Especially if it's, it could even be, just in creative settings where they're doing sort of media studies or production, that kind of thing. I think that would be really good. What we got? Thomas Ravenstein, call me crazy, but just renewed my mobile phone contract and took an iPhone 14 Pro with a special offer on it. Why not wait for the 15 Pro, because I'm afraid it will exceed my budget by far. I don't think the prices are going to change that much. I think it's going to be $100 difference on the starting model. For the larger one, it sounds like it's going to be more expensive than that. It's going to be an extra 100 on top of that, so like $12.99, which I do think is high. But also they're going to up the storage on both. You're going to get the telephoto zoom. I do think they're probably going to call the Pro Max an Ultra in this case, because I just think that makes the most sense in terms of if you need to justify a bigger chunk of price increase. If you rename it, then you're not increasing the price of the Pro Max. You are introducing a new model which is higher priced and retiring the Pro Max, which is details, but I think it would work for Apple to justify it that way. I don't think there'd be a huge uproar outside of the tech bubble. But yeah, I've been doing some work in the studio this week, not just to obviously get these videos out, and I think we've ended up putting out 6 videos this week if we include the live today, so that's not bad going. We'll take that. But there's also now a bar across the top of here, like a wooden batten, which has got my teleprompter built into it. The lamp that I'm using at the moment to do this bit, hello, there we go, that's where the light's coming from. That's got a hot shoe mount on one side, and then the other side has got my mics and stuff, so it should be quicker for me to get started. I don't have to kind of fold stuff out. I did basically just have a piece of, like, what is it, 1.5 by 3 inch batten that was just hinged off of one of the sides, so I've moved some of the storage around and that kind of stuff, just to try and make the studio a little bit more quickly accessible. We're using the iPhone as always to film this, so this is using continuity camera up here, just on a straight up from the desk. Yeah, the G4 iMac sitting there running quite happily in the background. Yeah, everything's good. Life's nice up here. I do have a couple of extra projects on the way. So we've got Project Quadra coming, which is going to be my iMac 27-inch. That's basically the system that I started this channel on, which is from 2012. So it's pre-Retina. So it's the 2560 by 1440 display. That I'm going to aim to quad boot. So it's going to be Project Quadra. And I know that kind of harks back to old Apple names. So it's going to have macOS, hopefully macOS Ventura, macOS Mojave, I think, so that we can play some of the old 32-bit games, Windows 10, most likely, probably not 11, because I don't think you can run 11 on it, and probably a version of Linux. If I can get like the SteamOS kind of thing going, that would be really good. I think that's going to be quite a fun little project. Hopefully also going to pull it apart and replace the internal spinny hard drive with an SSD and that kind of stuff, if that's possible, without it going crazy in terms of fans and stuff like that. But yeah, that's going to be one of the next projects that's coming. Slow Cuba, will the 15 Pro be heavier or lighter than the 14 Pro? By all accounts, it should be lighter because it's going to have the titanium frame instead of stainless steel. It just depends on how they construct it. It's not going to be hugely different, I wouldn't have thought. The new battery tech inside should be similarly dense, but more energy dense. So that's quite good because it should be these stacked batteries. So yeah. Lars Anderson, the new studio looks pretty cool. Thank you so much. What is your big plans with your channel? The main plan at the minute is to try and get back to regularly, at least like 3 or 4 days a week, producing content. Life has been like super busy with work, and obviously work has to come first. But having been over to Silverstone for the Grand Prix with work, so that was like 4 days out. Had a couple of sort of partnerships with different stuff, so like the Pico, the VR headset sponsorship that we had, like that partnership. We've got one video left to do on that, which is going to be coming in the early part of next week. But it won't be the last of the VR content. There is some really interesting stuff that's going on with that, so keep your eyes peeled for that. There is probably going to be a giveaway as well. I have got an extra headset, which we will probably give away at some point in the next month. Other than that, I want to try and do a little bit more kind of evergreen content, stuff that's not purely news-based, which is why we've got the iMac G4 unboxing next week. What else am I trying to do? Yeah, a bit more of the kind of project stuff like Project 91, where we put the M1 inside the classic Macintosh, but they don't tend to get that many views, and they don't even seem to be building up over time so much, so it's probably how I work out how to present those things, because I think they're interesting, and I think a lot of people would be interested in the project, especially given the reactions that they had at the Apple Battersea opening. But it's how I communicate that in thumbnail and titles, because YouTube is, it doesn't really matter how good your videos are. If your thumbnail and your title isn't good enough, nobody watches them. So yeah, it's kind of avoiding, because I don't want to be the clickbait guy. Definitely don't want to be that. I want to make sure that the titles are accurate, but also they've got to be kind of engaging and exciting, if that makes sense. So if anyone's got any ideas on how to do that, please let me know, because I would love to get more people to see Project 91, because I think probably more people saw it at that Apple Store opening than saw it on the videos, which is just upsetting, because I put loads of work into those. Thomas Rabenstein saying, I wish I could have a nice cave in my home. Instead, the family has given me a corner of the living room with a small desk. Our triplets have eaten up all the rooms, including my former office room. Yeah, I mean, that's why the iCave is basically a boiler room. Eli Easy, oh, thank you so much for the super chat. We will come back to Thomas's question. Is Apple planning to make the M3 better in performance than the M1 Pro? Also, is the iPhone 13 mini going to become the new iPhone SE? I don't think so. I think we'll take the second part first. I think the iPhone SE is probably going to be more likely the size of the iPhone base model, so like the 6.1? Yeah. I think it's 6.1 inches, isn't it? Yeah, I think that's the size that the SE is going to be. It may be slightly smaller, but we will see. In terms of the M3, I don't think Apple's planning to make it that way in particular. They're going to make it as quick as it can be based on the process, but because this is almost certainly now going to be a 3nm chip, and probably based on the A17 cores, I would guess, I think the chances are it will outperform the M3 Pro, the M1 Pro, sorry, in terms of CPU. Maybe not quite on GPU, but it's not going to be far away. And we were talking today on the video, you know, Baldur's Gate, if you've got a 16GB M1, in terms of the RAM on it, that will run the new Baldur's Gate 3 in Ultra, which previously you needed like a top-of-the-line MacBook Pro for. So M1, all of the Apple Silicon stuff is great in terms of performance. So yeah, really interesting. But thank you so much for the super chat. Really do appreciate it. Right, coming back to Thomas. Yeah, I mean, as I say, this is literally the boiler room space. This isn't big enough to be a bedroom. It did used to have kind of like a pantry built into it and stuff like that, and it had a door at that end, and now the door's over there, and we sealed up the outside door at that end with like a window, basically. So yeah, it's not a space that would have been a bedroom, which is, you know, it's the little kind of utility room for the house, which is why it's got the dryer, and we'll have the washing machine when we redo our kitchen, which is hopefully next year, fingers crossed, because I built the last one and it's kind of falling apart. It's done 10 years, it's done okay, not too bad. But yeah, that's the only reason that we've got a cave here, is because I did have to move out of my previous cave when Ted was born, which was upstairs, but it wasn't really for Apple stuff at the time. Slow Cuba is saying, my son says the 14 Pro fatigues his hand. Wonder if it's the weight or the hard edges. I mean, the way to find out with the hard edges would be to throw a case on it. But yeah, I don't know. How old's your son? Be interested to know. But I think the 14 Pro, it could be actually the size of it. If smaller phones were more popular, I think Apple would love to keep making them, and especially with what's going to be going on with the 3nm chips as well, the chances are that Apple would be able to get decent battery life out of it, because the chips are going to be way more efficient once we get to that 3nm process size as well. So yeah, the Mini would become far more plausible, I guess. Evan, hello mate, how are you? Hey Dave, which product are you most excited to see this fall? It's not a product as such, but M3 just in general. I really want to know what the performance is going to be like on that. Macs always interest me far more than the other stuff that Apple does. Although I am really interested now to see what Vision Pro actually does and how different it is from other VR headsets, because I'd never used one until I got the Pico. Now that I've used Pico, I'm kind of blown away by that, and given the way that people have reacted to Vision Pro who are in the industry and used a lot of different VR stuff, I'm just like super excited to find out what Apple is actually going to do with that, and how different it really is. Thank you very much for the super chat, sir. But yeah, I mean, really, it's all about the M3 for me, and what you can do with these base level chips, because I think that's the most interesting thing for me. I don't think, as great as the Pros and the Maxes are and the Ultras, the other thing I would be very interested to see is if Apple at some point can do an M3 Ultra or an M4 Ultra, which you can put multiple SoCs into the same device. That would be very, very good. But I don't see it happening. It looks like the M7 generation is when Apple is going to move over to doing like a chiplet package design, so that they can actually, build the SoCs custom from individual components. That would be very exciting, but obviously it's going to be quite a long time. But that might be what opens up. That might be when Apple actually kind of goes above what we currently see as the Ultra, and goes into, we can put whatever we want together here. Evan says, Dave, you should get a Vision Pro and lean hard into Apple VR content. Well, I would love to, but apparently we're not allowed to buy them to begin with in the first place, so that's very upsetting. But as soon as they are available, he says, I will try very hard to get hold of one. Certainly by the time they become available in the UK, I shouldn't have a mortgage anymore, which would be a positive step towards getting one of those. Eli Easy, another super chat. Thank you so much. Very much appreciated. Will the A17 possibly beat the M1 in performance, or will we have to wait a few more years? How will Apple affect the gaming community to buy Macs? So, A17 performance versus the M1. So the A17 is going to be based on 2 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores, whereas the M1 had got 4 and 4. So basically we've got to get twice the performance out of those performance cores, almost, if you ignore the fact that the efficiency cores have got faster as well. So yeah, I guess we probably need about an extra 60% performance, maybe, from the performance cores over what they were in A14, which is 3 generations ago. It's confusing, this. I think as well we have heard that the A17 could have 6 GPU cores potentially, which would get it much, much closer. And if those GPU cores have got that ray tracing as well, just saying, that'd be pretty cool. Be pretty cool. I don't think it's going to be far away, if I'm completely honest. I think, yeah, A17 could well basically be as quick as an M1, because the iPhone and certainly the iPad chips were overtaking the Macs before Apple Silicon came. So, yeah, could well be the case. In terms of how Apple affects the gaming community to buy Macs, I don't think you're going to convert gamers to Macs. What you might be able to do is if Apple became really good at like video encoding, which they're already pretty good at, finding a way to get gamers or streamers to buy Macs as their kind of their encoding setup, and then realising afterwards that, yeah, actually these are quite good at gaming too. That might be the way that people move over. Otherwise, I think it's more going to be a case of how do games companies convince people that have Macs to buy their games, and the first step on that is to make the games work. Now, if Baldur's Gate does well, that would be a really good step in the right direction, because that is going to convince a lot of other game studios that it might be worth doing Mac versions, especially if the game porting tool that Apple has introduced is actually really effective and makes it easier for game companies. That would be a really, really interesting thing to see how that pans out over the next year or so. Slow Cuber is saying, I'm looking forward to your take on the M3 devices once they're out. Yeah, I will try and probably get hold of an M3. I might grab a Mac Mini M3 because that'll probably be the cheapest way of getting my hands on one to test. So we'll see what we can do with that. Thomas Rabenstein, there was a lot of discussion and ranting on social media about Google's plans on Chrome. When I read what they wanted to do with tracking and directing ads to the user, I'm happy to have Safari. Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff around that just recently. Yeah, it's a little bit ropey, isn't it? But that's Google for you. Evan Rogers, well, congrats on no mortgage. Yeah, we bought a very cheap house. We had a decent-ish chunk to put down, and we got a 10-year mortgage. So yeah, and we got it at just the right time, because with all the mortgage rate rises that we've had recently, ours has barely gone up by anything, because it's well into four figures now. Well down into four figures. I think the leaked GB6 benchmarks make A17 equivalent to the M1 in multi-core. Yeah, Geekbench. I haven't seen any leaked numbers, but yeah, that's what I was kind of expecting. I think when I was asked this before, we kind of extrapolated some graphs, and it was something around here. It's going to be pretty close. Cool. Lars Anderson, if A17 is so powerful, you could use it as a 100% wireless pocket computer. Yes, but the other thing that I still think Apple should do is make a thin and light budget laptop, which is basically like, you know, let's take the iPad 9th gen as our baseline. If you were to put the current A17 on it instead of an A13, A12, A13, whichever one it is, you know, add in a basic keyboard, you've got a Mac. There's no reason that the A17 couldn't power a light macOS implementation, I wouldn't have thought. Limit it so you can't increase the RAM. So you get 6 gigs, but you can use a couple of apps at a time. You're probably not going to be doing a huge amount of Final Cut. You're probably not going to be doing massive Logic projects, but most people don't. So a cheap way to get into a Mac would be a really good idea. Or some kind of DeX type thing where you use your iPhone as your processor for an Apple TV with a Bluetooth keyboard and a trackpad. That'd be good. So, Eli EZ, AV1 encoding on Macs would be a game changer. Yeah, the media engines that they've got at the minute is mainly focused on HEVC and ProRes. So, yeah, if they were to throw in some of that other stuff, that would be really good. I'm not a huge expert on different encoding codecs and stuff like that, but yeah, like, make it a bit more general, allow it to use different codecs. Happy days. There's no disadvantage to having more options on it, other than optimization, I suppose, which is kind of where Apple's done well so far. Christopher Gavin, do you think they have cracked ray tracing? Well, apparently it was going into the actual chip design for the A16. I believe the issue was mainly around power consumption, and if they go into 3 nanometers, that's basically going to fix your power consumption on almost everything, and you've had an extra year of engineering time on trying to make sure it's optimized. I don't see why they wouldn't have. They're not the only people that have ever tried ray tracing. And Evan Rogers, Apple needs to continue to develop the porting tools to make games easier for the companies. You stole my words. Yeah, I try my best. But yeah, I think Apple's in a really positive place right now. We've also got these rumours that keep circling around about how Apple could potentially be looking to acquire Disney. It's not impossible. It's not impossible. Whether they want it or not, does Apple want to be operating theme parks? I don't know. It gives them a really good way to connect with a lot of people that wouldn't typically be using their tech. You know, iPads in every store, all of their tech throughout the parks, a lot of branding stuff. I mean, it does take out some of the sponsorship opportunities that Disney probably currently has with other technology companies like HP and Dell and stuff like that. But I think, I mean, I mentioned this in today's video. If you look at the current market value of Disney, it's $160-ish billion. They've just had some, they had their earnings call just come out, and it was under expectations, but not as badly as people thought. And a few years ago, Apple people were talking about how if AirPods were spun off as their own business, they'd be number 32 in the Fortune 500 or whatever it was, because AirPods as a business on its own is worth about $175 billion. So when you think that AirPods, if they were spun off as their own business, is a bigger business than the Walt Disney Company, that puts into perspective just how massive Apple is. So I think there's a huge issue there. Michael Moy, I see what you're saying about the political liabilities. Disney is not really having issues with that at this point, because their Reedy Creek Improvement District, which is the kind of land governance that they had in place, basically were able to veto what was going on with DeSantis before it actually happened, by all accounts, because they knew the law a lot better than him. And DeSantis seems to be crashing and burning right now as well. When you look, I mean, we're not going to turn this into a political podcast or a political live stream, but yeah, DeSantis ain't exactly on fire as he is. Yeah, not great. Right, back to the actual the Apple stuff. What have we got here? Have you tried the public beta for Sonoma yet? Can you tell us a bit about it if you have, Thomas? Yeah, sure. It's actually running at the minute on Project 91. So when I took the M1 Macintosh Classic down to the Apple Store in Battersea for the opening day, that's what was running on it, and still is. I haven't been doing a huge amount with it. Hey, dude. I've not been doing a huge amount with it. It's basically been a test bed, and it's been the OS that I put on there just to play with. But yeah, it's been stable. There's been no issues with it. I haven't really played with things like the widgets. But if I hook it up to the big screen at some point soon, I might try using it for a few days, because I've got some time at home during the day this next week, and then I'm out working in the evenings. So yeah, that's what we're up to at the moment. But yeah, I think it seems good. It seems good. The game porting thing I've not really been pushing, but or the the game mode that it's got as well, where it focuses on the games. Haven't played with that yet. Eli Easy, thank you again for yet another super chat. Why didn't M2 Pro get a RAM upgrade like the other M2 processors? Will we see 64 gigs of RAM on the M3 Pro? How will the M3 Pro compare to M2 Pro? So, I don't know is the first thing. It looks like the M3 Pros and M3 Maxes are getting 16 CPU cores, whereas we've had 10 on the first generation, 12 on the second generation. So if they're going up to 16, they are probably putting more channels through it. So I would guess we will get a little bit of a bump on this one. But also, in terms of the performance increase, this is going to be mainly driven by, number one, I think we've seen that it's going up from like 3.42 gigahertz to 3.76, I want to say, in the CPUs, something along those lines. So there's going to be a performance bump there just in terms of clock speed, but it's also the fact that with the shorter traces and the smaller transistors, there's going to be less power consumption, therefore there's also less resistance, there's going to be less heat pushed out, so they should be able to run faster for longer on their like maximum clock. They should, I think we're going to be looking at something around, I'd be surprised if it's less than 25% performance improvement, because Apple's still going to be developing the actual core designs and making them smaller and more efficient and be able to keep them faster for longer. So that all kind of points to me to at least 25% faster, because I think we got something like 21% or 18% from M1 to M2 and that was on the same process. So yeah, I think it's going to be quite substantial. Could be as much as 30%. But then is Apple going to hold a little bit back for the M4 generation? Because they ain't going to be changing node again probably until M6, maybe M7. I don't know. You tell me. Let me know in the chat. Have to stay hydrated with soda. Don't judge me. But yeah, there's a lot going on. We haven't even spoken since all the X stuff going on Twitter. Is anyone still over there on X? Anyone kissing all the time? Sending out kisses? It's been very strange. It's been a strange time to be alive, and then we've got Elon is going to fight Zuckerberg, and it all seems a little homoerotic to me. I don't know. I'm not excited to see them fight. Although, I think Mark Zuckerberg is quite a badass when it comes to actual fighting. Elon probably didn't think this one through. That's weird, isn't it? He normally thinks everything through in great detail. Christopher Gavin, Evan thought Apple might get Sony. They were the only player that looked like they were up for grabs. Just did a little deal with Netflix. I was their first Elon compound sound. Yeah, I don't know. Sony, I can't see Sony as a tech company selling Sony, the media company, to another tech company. That would be a little bit odd. But yeah, I don't know. I think Apple and Disney have got so much history. Steve Jobs was one of the biggest individual shareholders of the Walt Disney Company. He owned something like 7 or 8% of Disney stock, at least at one point. I don't know if his family still does. Michael Moy might be able to help us out on this because he is the stock guy. Then obviously Bob Iger has been on the board of Apple and only left when Apple and Disney Plus were both going to be doing their own streaming services, so like conflicts of interest, they came out. But obviously Steve was basically the founder of Pixar as an animation studio as opposed to the computer graphics department of Lucasfilm. So Pixar and Lucasfilm therefore both have ties back to Apple and are both now at Disney, and Disney is not in a great shape. As soon as Bob Iger came back, we immediately started hearing rumours of potential sales to Apple. Apple is basically the only company big enough in the world that could legitimately buy Disney, But then Apple doesn't tend to buy massive companies. They tend to buy small companies for technology and then develop everything else themselves, which is what they've been doing with Apple TV+. But I do think if you wanted to become an entertainment and services juggernaut, there's not many better companies to buy than Disney. And also, the amount of IP that Disney owns in terms of like going right back to Disney's own origins with Mickey Mouse and that back catalogue of classic movies, and also now Fox, and also now Marvel and Lucas, and is it Discovery? No, it's not Discovery then, is it Nat Geo? I'm going to say Nat Geo. They've got so much different IP, and the thing that I'm not sure that they would want would be like the parks, Disney stores, but like merchandising. The amount of tie-ins that you could do between Marvel movies and Apple in terms of like branded devices, branded cases, all that sort of stuff. There's so much that could be done. I think it would be a very positive thing. I would be very excited if that happens, and I would be straight on here making videos. Michael Moy is saying that he's waiting for a web client for Threads, and then he's over there, so away from X. That makes sense. Eli Easy is saying, I have a desktop with 128 gigs and hope one day I can upgrade to a Mac, but it's very expensive to upgrade to a Mac with that much RAM. It is, but you don't need as much RAM in most cases. Like, it's much more efficient in terms of memory usage, memory compression, swap, all that sort of stuff. You would probably get away with a 64GB system for the same sort of applications, but it depends what you're doing with it. If you're doing massive data sets in some sort of scientific simulations, then maybe you are in the right place in terms of hardware. Thomas Ravenstein deleted all Meta and X. Now home now on Mastodon. Post more often there. We are missing you. Well, I keep trying to come over to Mastodon now that we've got Threads, which is going to be on the Fediverse thing. Eventually, I don't think it's there yet, is it? But that's the plan. So that should all be kind of cross-posting with Mastodon, I guess. I believe that's the way that it works. Fingers crossed. Right, do we think that, Michael Moy is saying, do you think we'll get a Beats Fit Pro update this year? I'll be honest, I barely follow the Beats stuff. I know it's Apple owned, but it doesn't seem to be focused on Apple users. It seems like Beats has literally been built as a way for them to sell audio products to Android users. I could be wrong on that, but that very much seems the way that it is, especially with the kind of features that they put in versus leave out of the Beats stuff. So, I mean, it's possible, but I think if they follow the same rules that AirPods do, it would typically be a 3-year update cycle, so I don't know when the last came out. Christopher Gavin, Apple and Disney makes sense, but I don't think Disney is for sale, and do Apple want a theme park? Disney doesn't need to be for sale because they're a publicly traded company, but a lot of the rumours have been sort of circulating that the reason that Bob Iger went back was to prep it for a sale, for an acquisition, which the only company that would make sense for that to happen with would be Apple, and he knows the company well. Him and Tim Cook work well together. I think they're both, I could be wrong about this, but I think they might both be on the board of Nike. Make of that what you will. Does Apple want a theme park? Probably not ideally, but they could certainly have they'd have the expertise coming in from Disney to keep it running. They just need to oversee the financials, I guess. So, yeah, maybe. Evan Rogers, Apple buying all of Sony would make Android stronger because it would make Apple apps a reality. Why? Surely Apple would just stop making Sony phones. That's the thing. I don't think Apple could acquire a technology company. I think if they were to buy any technology company, the FCC would just be straight in there and say, no, absolutely not. Evan Rogers, I could see Apple buying Pixar, but Disney's not going to sell Pixar because Pixar is basically what creates... they're basically running Disney's animation studios right now. Like, what was his name? John Lasseter, who was the head of Pixar. When Pixar was acquired by Disney, they basically took him and said, right, you're running our animation studios. Now, he's left since then because of unwanted hugging. But yeah, Lasseter is now actually working for Skydance, which is the one that makes all the Apple stuff. So he's already come back to Apple. Yeah, it's going to be basically all of Disney, maybe minus the straight up kind of linear TV services, or nothing. I don't think they're going to strip out different IPs. Michael Moy, Apple isn't listed in the largest institutional holders, and I don't have a list of the largest private holders. Okay, yeah, I think it was definitely something like 7 or 8% that Steve owned after the Pixar acquisition. Right, I'm just going to do the super chat, and we'll come back to the regular list again from Eli Easy. Thank you so much for all these super chats. I'm very much appreciated. Last question, are we going to see a RAM upgrade on all the M3 processors? For instance, the M3 with 32GB, M3 Pro with 64, M3 Max with 128. It's quite possible. I think the amount of RAM, the amount of like unified memory is kind of overstated on these in terms of the importance. But I would also say that because that is shared between the GPU and the CPU, like up to half of the memory that you've got assigned to any of these processors can be used for graphics, which means on an M3 Max you could literally have 64 gigs of graphics memory. And what does a 4090 Ti or whatever the top ones are, it's like 16 gigs, something like that. So that would actually give a big advantage for Max in terms of massive scenes and that kind of stuff, even if it doesn't have the raw grunt to get through it all. But I could definitely see it happening because some people really want to have those big numbers, and you know that Justine and Marques Brownlee will both be buying whatever the maximum one is that they can get, because they both went and put 1.5 terabytes of RAM in Mac Pros when they were Intel, and there was no real need for that either. So it's really just the kind of flex of, yeah, I've got the top end one, 50 grand, 60 grand, whatever it was. Far too much. But, you know, someone's got to buy it, and if they can put it on YouTube, maybe Apple gives them a bit of a discount on it. I don't know. Anyway, back to the stuff. But thank you so much for all these super chats. It is very much appreciated. I am working my butt off here this week. Sony were the only one without a deal. All the rest are paired up with a tech company. But yeah, that's the problem, is that they can't really... Apple just can't acquire anything that's tech company based. Yeah. Michael Moy says, it's 2 years, so probably not. I'm not quite sure what that one referred to, but I'm sure it's something that I said earlier. Lars Anderson, it's a good time for Apple to buy Disney Plus due to all the woke and Me Too stuff that they're into at the moment. One more month and they'll get it all for free, more or less. I don't think so. I think the core audience of Disney still watches Disney, and I think they're on the side of like the woke, the like caring about other people side of stuff. I don't think woke is actually affecting Disney in terms of bottom line, apart from attendance at the Florida theme park. That's the only one. And I think once DeSantis is out of the way, I don't think it's going to matter as much by any means, because I genuinely, I'm not sure that the people of Florida particularly like DeSantis at this point. But again, I'm getting back onto politics, and that's not what we're here for. Thomas Ravenstein, have you tried the Open Core Legacy Patcher? Just bought my older MacBook Pro back to life, early 2013, running Ventura on it now, and it runs really well. I haven't, but it is going to be something I'm going to be looking at for Project Quadra, which we'll come back to in a sec. Evan, thank you so much, sir. Thank you again for yet another super chat. I love you all. You're all great people. So, Thomas, the iMac that's getting the 4 different boot drives, that one is the one. Oh, thank you so much, Eli Easy. You guys are too kind today. Very much appreciate it. Mega pints and pints from Evan and Eli Easy. Thank you so much. Open Core Legacy Patcher. That's basically what's replaced like Tony Mac x86 and the kind of whatever it was called. Was it Unibeast and Multibeast? I think those were the previous patches. I tried to go on the Tony 86 website today because there was some really cool like iMac G4 mods that people had been posting, and Cloudflare wasn't letting me in, so So I haven't looked at the website in years, so I don't think it was my fault. But yeah, it was a bit broken. But yeah, that used to be where you'd go for all the Hackintosh stuff, and like Open Core seems to now be kind of overtaken all of that stuff. It's what people are using to do Hackintoshing, to bring older Macs up to date, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I will be playing around with it. I've never done it in my life before, so I'm terrified, but it's going to be fun. Michael Moy is saying they won't have to pay for expensive wheels on the Mac Studio. Well, yeah, no, probably, maybe that's it. Yeah, they pay for the 1.5 terabytes of RAM. Apple chucks in the wheels. Yeah, good stuff. IV says, Dave, great content as always. How can we spread the word and manipulate the YouTube algorithm? Ian. Thank you, Ian. The best way is what you're doing right now, is engaging with the content that we do. It is just me, just to be 100% clear. I don't have an editing team in this little, boiler room in my house. But yeah, it's when we've got the regular videos, jump in there with an iCaveAnswers question. Use the hashtag down in the comments. You'll always get a response from me. Any comments that you leave on any of my videos will always get a response. Obviously in the live chats, I'll be I'll be responding on here. In iCaveAnswers stuff, if you put down a question in there, I do get occasionally comments that have hashtag iCaveAnswers, and then it's not actually a question, which makes it difficult. So I'll always respond to that comment. But at this point, I've been YouTubing for 3 years on iCaveDave, and I've replied to every comment that's been left on the YouTube channel. I don't miss them. As long as YouTube shows it to me. Sometimes it'll show me a comment 3 months later, and I'll be like, awkward, but here's your answer. Sorry for the delay. But yeah, the best way is, if you know other people that are into Apple, or if you have a lot of techie friends on your Facebook or your Twitter, feel free to hit share. Love it. And tell them to comment that you sent me, that you sent them, because then I can say thank you. But yeah, just subscribe, all the usual good stuff. We're going to wrap this up in 9 minutes, so we've done an hour. That seems fair again. But it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you guys. It's always nice because we get the core of the real fan base quite often on these live streams. And I always spend the first 5-10 minutes going, yeah, there's loads of stuff going on this week. Anyone there? But I really love it when we get to the proper chats and you're asking questions, and I can sort of address the stuff that you're interested in real time. That's why I love doing iCaveAnswers on the channel, because nobody else in tech seems to do this. Nobody else in tech seems to take questions from the audience and reply to them in the way that we have. I know Saran Bites, who obviously myself and Saran were very close at the beginning and podcasted together and all that sort of stuff, which has been fun. And then obviously I kind of dropped off the radar for a little bit because work, whereas he is one of those youth student types. And he's overtaken me by a couple of thousand subs at this point. So that gives me another target, someone else to catch up with. Saran, I'm coming back for you, mate. But we get on really well. I think he's superb. Christopher Gavin is saying, you are very good at commenting, and we appreciate it. Not that great commenting to... Sorry, there's the little heart things in the way, so I can't actually see what you're saying. Not that great at commenting to a reply, though. Oh, yeah. So, here's the thing. If you reply on a thread on YouTube, it doesn't show it to me. It'll give me an alert on my phone, but what it won't do is actually put it, because in the back end of YouTube, I have it set so that it shows me the stuff I've not replied to, but it's anywhere within that thread, so it has to be an original comment, and not a reply to another one. Otherwise, I may well miss it, but I do try. I can't be the last comment on every thread. That would be a challenge. But yeah, I do enjoy chatting to everyone, and there's no point in me doing this if nobody's watching and nobody actually cares. So it is good to know, because when you ask questions, I know at least one person's going to wait for the result. I'm never going to get no views on that next video, so that helps me. But yeah, at one point when we were doing this, we got to the point where I was almost having to say we're not going to be able to answer all the iCaveAnswers questions because there was just so many coming through. I think at one point I was doing 2 videos a day just on iCaveAnswers because that was where the community was. One thing we did used to do was the notification squad. Do we think we should bring that back? So like when you first sign up for notifications on the channel, you post notification squad in the comments with a hashtag, and then you get a shout out in the next episode. I'm happy to do that again. Do you think that would be good? Is there anyone here that hasn't got notifications switched on? Let me know. I've got to say, I do really appreciate all the super chats today. It's been one of those weeks where I've really tried to smash out the content, and makes it feel like you care. So thank you. Right, guys, if nobody has got any more questions for this show, I will wrap it up because my eye is starting to itch, and weird red eyes is not going to be a great look for YouTube. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to my Patreons. If you want to come and join in with the Patreons, iCaveDave.com/Patreon. And yeah, thank you all for being here and having a chat. Oh, Eli Easy. Hopefully one day YouTube can get up there with the big tech YouTubers. Main issue is uploading quality and quantity. Yep, do my best. Christopher Gavin. New images and logos, etc. are great. Okay, do you think we need to do some updates on that? Do we need to increase? Have a good weekend. Yeah, it is now just coming up to 11 PM here in the UK. So it is time for bed. And I will see you all in the next one. Good night, guys. Thank you.